How's it going, everyone? As a software engineer, I've given about 3 or 4 tech talks over the last, I'd say about 3 years. And while they're absolutely terrifying, like honestly, the only thing more terrifying for me than giving a tech talk was when I had a brief stint of doing some stand-up comedy gigs. They're actually a great way to meet people, a great way to get involved with the local community for engineering, and a great way just to network with other people in your current town. Today I want to give you some tips on how to get started giving these technical presentations. Tip number 1 is come up with a title first. I found the best format for these talks for me goes something like this. Talk about a problem you've had at work, some ways you try to solve it, and then how you ended up solving it in the very end. Good example for that is I have a talk that I'll link down below called Preventing Accessibility Penalties at the NFL. I wrote this while I was working at the NFL. It's talking about my experience of setting up automatic testing and monitoring to make sure NFL.com worked for screen readers and was WCAG compliant. That's nice because you can kind of bring someone through a narrative. People love hearing stories. And this is how you can take some information that is available in other places and tweak it and give your own spin on it. So there's a lot of places on Google that tell you how to make, for example, a slider accessible. But there's nowhere else talking about how NFL used this idea to make our slider for our video player volume accessible on our website. So that's a good way of being able to give knowledge while at the same time putting your own spin on it. The next tip is to hit the like button and the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be part of the notification squad. All joking aside, it really does help the channel. I really appreciate it. And if you like what you've seen so far, it just helps spread the word across the channel. Okay, now that I've got that call to action out of the way, the next actual tip is to book a date. So you might be saying, but James, I haven't even started the presentation. How can I book the date? And my response to that is exactly. There's nothing that will get you to actually finish this presentation than if you have the social pressure of it actually being due in 6 to 8 weeks. The best way to find places to do this presentation is literally open up Google and type in, for example, I typed in JavaScript meetup groups Los Angeles, and that's how I found JSLA, which is probably the biggest JavaScript meetup group in LA. Makes sense. They got the best. They got the best meetup group name. Usually on the site they have an email address or some sort of contact information to reach out and propose a talk. Now, they're actually always looking for new people to give talks because unsurprisingly, there isn't that many software engineers who want to talk in front of 100 people. That's just not the rep that our industry has. So they're always really, really friendly, and it's a really easy way to get in. From there, you have the date booked, and oh man, will you work exponentially harder on the upcoming days as it gets closer and closer to the deadline. It's just like doing a high school essay. Okay, now that you have the date booked, the next step is to write an outline in Google Docs. Now, I would start by writing it in Google Docs first and not create slides. Now, why do I say that? The most common issue I find people do is they spend way too much time working on their slides and not nearly enough time actually practicing the presentation. And this is, I can't stress this enough because even I made this mistake on the first presentation I gave. And that's because when you're working on slides, you feel productive. So you feel like you're getting closer and closer to your goal, but in actuality, it's usually a big waste of time. Especially if you're like me, you can't even draw a straight line, you don't have a designer bone in your body. You don't want to spend too much time on these slides. So what I'll do first is I make the outline. I'll read the outline to myself with a timer to kind of get a feel for how long this presentation is going to be. And once I get about 20 minutes, half an hour, I take the outline and start making placeholder slides. I use a tool called Beautiful AI, but honestly, it doesn't matter. Whatever's on your computer, you can use Keynote, you can use Google Slides. It doesn't really matter. The main thing is get the placeholder slides down first. The nice thing about that is when you have the placeholder slides down, you'll be like a couple weeks out before your presentation, you can call up your graphic designer buddy and have them just ask them politely to like make your slides look nicer. And it'll take your graphic designer buddy like an hour and a half, where it would have taken you 100 hours and it wouldn't have looked nearly as nice. So I've done that trick a couple of times, and man, thanks so much, Mary and Tara, for saving my slides, because if you saw the original version of those slides, oh man, definitely looked like a software engineer made them. And this brings you to the next step, which is actually practice. Now, not only just practice, but practice as close to how you're going to give this presentation as you possibly can, which means I want you standing up. I want you to have one of those like little remote control clicker things for the slides. And most importantly, film yourself, even if it's just filming yourself with your camera webcam. I cannot express this enough, because giving a presentation sitting down is like a completely different feeling than giving it standing up. So these little things really do matter. Also, when I say film yourself, I mean actually film yourself and look at yourself afterwards. Watch the whole presentation. It's going to be really, really painful, especially if this is the first time you've ever watched yourself on camera or listen to yourself. Oh, especially listening to yourself. Like, I remember the first time I was doing some of these YouTube videos and just having to listen to the sound of my own voice, constantly screwing up basic sentences it's really tough. And when I go back to edit this footage right now, I'll probably feel the same thing. But the best way to eliminate those ums and uhs is to listen to yourself do it and hear that pain that you feel. The other nice thing about watching the playback is you can see certain sections of the presentation where you'll notice that are a bit choppy, don't flow really well. It's just like learning how to play a song on guitar. You can break out those small sections and practice those sections, and then work on combining that to the rest of the presentation. The next tip, and this is very particular for tech presentations, is please pre-record any and all demos. For the love of God, do not do a live demo. I've only seen one person successfully play a live demo in every single conference I went to, and this guy was a professional tech evangelist for Microsoft who literally gives the exact same presentation over and over again. It's literally his full-time job. It's the only person I've seen. And this is especially too, dude, if you're making a Docker presentation, no live demo, period. Every single time I've seen someone give a Docker presentation with a live demo, the internet never works. Like, especially with Docker, you're gonna be downloading these 2 GB images. Like, what do you expect's gonna happen? And even if the internet does work, it's gonna be like a slow download and it's gonna be really awkward. Instead, all the best presentations I've seen have a pre-recorded demo playing in the background and then the presenter speaking over it. Not only does that mean the demo will actually work and won't be boring and annoying and be on the correct time, but it just makes the whole presentation flow like 100 times better. Like, oh my gosh, don't do live demos. Next is I want you to be next level prepared. I want you to be so prepared that you're annoying your friends and family and annoying your loved ones. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, you're showing up to that presentation, you're gonna have your presentation files backed up to Google Drive, backed up to iCloud, on a USB thumb drive in case your MacBook doesn't work. You're gonna have dongles for your MacBook, for your PC, with like multiple ways of plugging it in, because I promise you one of the dongles isn't gonna work. You're gonna bring your own clicker too, so remote control. I'll put a link to the one I use, but it doesn't really matter. Like, it can be a $20 one, it's not a big deal. What can go wrong will go wrong. I actually learned this trick from playing in a heavy metal band for years. I'm still playing one now, but we would bring our own microphones and mic cables to venues because everybody in the band sang, and we knew 99% of the venues we were playing at would only have one microphone because they're used to just one singer. So every little thing that you can have in your control, just 100% do it. Because there's nothing worse than showing up to the presentation 10 minutes beforehand and you're fiddling with the wire and you're just getting in your head and stressing yourself out. It sucks. Ugh, it super sucks. And finally, just get started. Actually take some action and go ahead and move forward with it. I promise you, like, the key trick to all this is just actually booking it, which is why it was my number one tip. And it's amazing what social pressure will get you to do. And I've used this social pressure trick on so many things, not just presentations. Thanks again for watching this video. If you have any questions about giving tech presentations or anything like that, please leave a comment below. Tell me some of the horror stories you've seen of some other people's tech presentations. Usually I found they're almost always Docker related because people don't listen to my tip about not doing live demos. And thanks again. I'll catch you in the next video.